In the previous video, we followed the daily pickup goods as it progressed down the line to Bickerton. We now continue the story. As the midday down passenger arrives, we see the pickup goods waiting. It has shunted off an open wagon and picked up 2 flat wagons of agricultural equipment and an open wagon containing sacks of grain destined for the grist mill at Buckley. With the line ahead now clear, the goods can depart. The sacks wagon is at the front of the train, and the 2 opens with barrels to be delivered to Beaston Castle are now at the rear. Taking a guard's eye view from the brake van, we pass through the cutting and cross the junction for the sand quarry to commence our climb up Gallantry Bank. Nearing the summit of our 1 in 40 climb, we ignore the crossover on this occasion to make our way to Bentley Station. Buckley is, in reality, a tiny hamlet at the foot of the Peckforton hills. In my imagined history, a bone mill has been moved from a few miles away to process carcasses and make fertilizer and glue, and fruit farms have been established to send strawberries, blackcurrants, and other soft fruit by special trains to major cities. As we pull into the station, a down train of ex-Snail Beach hopper wagons is making its way to the sand quarry, hauled by open cab Black Hawthorn Loco No. 14, Burwoodsley. This started life as an LGB Otto Loco, but has been heavily modified. Once the sand train has cleared the station area, our loco makes its way to the bone mill siding to collect a tarpaulin-covered open wagon. These wagons are used to transport carcasses and manure to the bone mill, discreetly covered to avoid upsetting passengers of a nervous disposition. Unfortunately, the tarpaulin cannot mask the smell, as was reported in local newspapers from that time. Once the wagon has been added to the front of the train, the passing loop is clear to allow the early afternoon up passenger to overtake. The luggage van is sometimes needed when a large party of passengers are using the train to visit the Spa Hotel at Buckley to take the local spring water. Peckforton Hills spring water does really exist, but the hotel was constructed only in my imagination. Once the line ahead has been cleared by the passenger train, the goods can proceed. We cross the swing bridge. Of course, there would never have been a need for a swing bridge on Peckforton Light Railway, but I needed something to bridge the gap in front of the workshop and garden shed, and the Southwold swing bridge was exactly the right length. We skip the uninteresting section behind the workshop to pass the copper mine junction. then run beneath an overbridge that was cast in concrete in situ, to take the crossover we saw previously. This allows us to descend the other side of Gallantry Bank, but of course we're actually going back down the climb we made earlier. This is just one of several sleights of hand, thanks Grist, I used to squeeze the supposed 7 miles of railway into the space available. We avoid running into Peckforton Station again and take a junction to run alongside the back of the house on a raised bed. As the loco at the head of the train reaches the siding for the grist mill, we coast to a halt. You will recall that we picked up an open wagon loaded with sacks at Peckforton. These need to be transported to Bewkley Grist Mill. Shunting into the down-facing siding at the mill requires help from Gemeinde Loco number 26 James, who we saw in the previous video in the sawmill sidings at Peckforton. Our loco has pulled forward to allow James to remove the sack wagon and run it into the siding. The ex-Southwold Railway closed van from the siding can then be attached to the train, before James retires to the siding to wait until the line is clear before returning to Peckforton. The pickup goods can now be reassembled and continue its journey towards Peckforton. As the shunting required for Peckforton was completed on the downward journey, our train can pull into the platform road of the passing loop, where it awaits the arrival of the down ore train. With the way ahead now clear, we can continue our journey towards Beaston Castle. After the level crossing, we'd round a curve to encounter the gatehouse for Peckforton Castle. You will notice that the sand train we saw earlier at Bewkley is nestling behind the gatehouse. This is yet another bit of jiggery-pokery to compress the geography of the line into the garden. At one end of this link is the sand quarry, and at the other is Peckforton Castle. But the link can also act as a reversing loop, should this ever be needed. As we pass over, and then alongside the River Gowie, you might just catch glimpses of the down ore train below us on the right. It is making its way to Bewkley, while we are on the approach to Beaston Castle Station. Our driver hasn't forgotten that the 2 open wagons loaded with beer barrels at the rear of the train need to be delivered to the brewery at Beaston Castle. As the brewery siding is up-facing, it's easier to shunt the wagons into this siding when the pickup goods is returning up the line. We now have to wait on the passing loop for the arrival of the down afternoon mixed. Of course, for timetabling reasons, passenger trains have priority, and the pickup goods has to wait its turn. As the number of shunting manoeuvres can never be predicted on the daily pickup goods, its schedule has to be somewhat flexible. We are now on the last leg of the journey. We depart Beaston Castle and make our way in a leisurely fashion towards Beaston Market, passing along by the hedge at the back of the garden. This was actually the original ground level of the garden before 2 skiploads of soil were dug out to create the lawns between the raised beds. In other words, it's not the beds which are raised, but the lawns which are sunken in this part of the garden. We pass by the crossover yet again, to plunge into the cutting and go beneath the overbridge, which provides a scenic break before the line passes once more behind the workshop. Jumping ahead, we emerge from behind the workshop and ignore the junction to our left, which we took earlier to take us into Bentley Station. The copper mine is on our right, not really here of course, but 7 miles away, between Buckley and Bickerton. Yet more of an illusion needed to make the best of the available space. We are now approaching our final destination, Beaston Market Station. This is the principal station on the line, with the largest set of sidings and the engine shed. It also boasts a cattle dock for the Smithfield Market, which gives the station its name. But its greatest feature is the set of interchange sidings with the LNWR mainline railway between Crewe and Chester. This is where copper ore, spoil, sand, beer, timber, soft fruit, milk, fertiliser and glues are transferred out, and coal, carcasses and general merchandise is shipped in.